From the misty Pacific coast to the rugged Cascade Mountains and beyond to the high desert in the east. Whether you chase black-tailed or mule deer, Roosevelts or Rockies, if you fish for bass or salmon, hunt cougars, bears, turkeys, or ducks, we want to talk about the most overlooked section of the outdoorsman community, true Pacific Northwest hunters and fishermen. You have found the podcast for you. Born in the wettest woods of the lower 48, where we only talk about the endless pursuits of the far western world to inspire you in your next adventure.
There will be many tags in our lives that go unfilled, but if your first objective is to learn and grow, you can find success in every season.
And I'd stand up and like, oh my God,
Your foot fell off.
it's off. Can't find it.
And ask the big questions about what truly motivates our life in the wild.
I believe that God gave us the ability to do this.
You go from plodding along and not really living to living the full, abundant life that He has for you now.
You are listening to the Oregon First Hunting and Fishing Podcast.
Welcome to the show. Thank you so much for joining us, for tuning in. If you are new around here, I just want to say thank you for checking us out. If you've been listening for a while, you know, it would really help us out if you shared this show with people that you know who you think would be interested in talking about Western Oregon outdoorsmanship, just so that way we can continue to grow. We've been at it for almost 2 years, and we've seen a lot of growth in that time. It's been super exciting, but, you know, we want to continue to see more people finding the show, learning about it. So if you could help share it, it would go a long way. You know, another way you can connect with us is through social media. We're on all the social media platforms, just like everyone else is. But we've really been pumping out a lot of content up there. No one makes any money off of this, but it has been pretty fun to be able to do what we've been doing and to have some of these conversations that turn out to be pretty important conversations. So once again, thanks for tuning in. If you want to give us feedback, if you want to offer a correction, or if you want to give us some ideas for future show topics, maybe you just want to encourage us to continue doing what we're doing, if you go to our Linktree link, which is found on our social media platform bios, you can click on that and see there's a bunch of different ways to connect, but one of those is a feedback form that we've created, and we'd love to hear from you. If you enjoy the show, if you have ideas for how we can improve, I want to hear it all. So make sure to check that out when you get a chance. Today, I'm joined with Kyle, one of our co-hosts. We have him on whenever we talk about anything bass fishing related. He is the show's resident bass guru. I was honored that Kyle reached out to me a few months ago and offered to take me on his annual wintertime bass trip. So for the last few years, Kyle has gone out on December 26th and fished in this one private pond that he traded fishing permission for electrician work, since he's a journeyman electrician. And so Kyle goes out there, and this pond is not really fished in the way that he fishes, you know. It's casually fished, but Kyle's hardcore. And there's some big bass that live in this pond. I didn't even know you could catch bass in the winter until a couple years ago, and I certainly had never tried. So I didn't have the highest expectations, but Kyle was pretty certain that we'd be taking home some PBs off of this trip. I was just going to be blown away if I even caught bass in December. That was an accomplishment for me. It's something that I never thought I'd even be able to approach. But here we are, December 26th, the day after Christmas, waking up at 4 in the morning and driving out to the hills in the pouring rain to go fish a ranch pond up in the mountains. If you've listened to this show much, you know that Kyle pours his own custom baits. And so when I pulled into his driveway in the morning darkness, he gave me a tour of his pour shed. We approached a door on the side of his house, which was just held shut by a bungee cord. He opens the door and reveals a lit up old garden shed with custom workbenches, a ventilation system, and shelves full of product. I didn't even notice the dirty lawnmower sitting in the middle of the floor, since my eye was just drawn to this beautiful pile of freshly poured swim baits sitting on his cleanest workbench. And from there, Kyle gave me the grand tour. you got going on?
Yeah, so, I mean, this is a pretty basic, but I think fairly capable
Mind if I record a little
bait
bit
station. Yeah, do what you do.
too? Just because, you know,
Yeah,
don't want to waste an opportunity to.
might as well. So, yeah, this is where I make pretty much all of the baits that I make. So, there's a little stash, stick baits, swim baits.
Oh
through
man,
the
yeah,
creatures,
you
through
look
the-
pretty stocked up.
Yeah,
Kyle points out a couple of 5-gallon buckets of raw material underneath of his workbench.
new 5-gallon of plastisol. Those two are in process right now.
What do you mean by in process?
They're partially full. I'm working on them.
Okay, so you do you have to go through a full bucket in a certain amount of time?
No, it's pretty resilient. You just have to mix it regularly, or otherwise the resin settles out.
Okay, got it. Yeah.
Yeah, but these are the aluminum molds.
I noticed his custom ventilation system. Is this an oven hood here?
Yeah, just
Nice.
the fumes are not good. You don't really
Yeah.
want to breathe them in. So
Yep.
I've got them all switched because
Oh yeah.
I can.
Yep. Well, you're a pro, so. Kyle has two different kinds of molds: open pour and injector. The open pour ones have a big open hole on the top so you can pour layers of material in, while the injectors use a special pump that shoots the material into the mold.
But yeah, these are. So like this is an open pour swim bait mold.
Oh, okay, got it. So that's how you pour the
pour them and then pull them apart.
2 pieces of aluminum with the fish shape in there, and
Yeah.
then you pull them apart to get it out. Is that why?
Yeah.
So when you have them together, that's it's the open hole, but then you still have to pull them apart.
Yeah, you just pour through that little gap in the top.
Okay.
I mean, and there's a lot of different things you can do. Like you can pour with them open, just a little tiny bit to get whatever patterns or whatever you want, and then pull them apart. And
Have you been working on your artistry with that?
man, a little bit. I mean,
We turned our attention to a big shelf full of dyes. All
I'm
these are
getting
your
better.
colors up here, right?
yeah. So those are all dyes and
You
color
got about 2
changes.
dozen different colors and a few different brands. It looks
don't
like a
even
couple
know.
different brands.
These are all pearl effects. These are color shifts, and then these are just standard colors.
Okay. And
this-
they're made for lures. It's not like you're
Yeah.
just using any random dye.
Nope, they're made for plastisol color. These are the injectors
Oh, cool.
for the
like
injection
a-
molds.
Modified bicycle pump.
Basically, yeah, just aluminum and clean that
It's
one.
all aluminum in here, man.
pretty much.
Yeah.
Pretty much.
And then these ones, they're not the open pores.
No, so these are like I don't even remember which one this is, but
It has a small hole in the top, and then your pump fits
hang
right
on.
on there. Got it screwed on a little tight there, huh?
yeah. Well, and the other thing is you always put them away hot, and then they change temperature. And
Yeah.
So
Swell up and everything.
yeah, so like
Okay.
your injector fits in there and it fills.
Fills all 6 of them,
Yeah.
and then you take it apart. How long does it have to stay in there?
Not very long, especially if you're doing this kind of injection stuff and you don't have a super hot mold. You can put it in there for 3 to 5 minutes and it's good to go.
Oh, cool.
You can pull it
Nice.
apart.
Yeah. What you got on the tray here?
Just some play. So like, that's
practice?
That's an example of an open pour I did recently.
yeah.
I'm just practicing getting the center line to stop behind the eyeball and then
Yeah.
gracefully fade. There is a little bit of diamond in the belly,
Oh, okay.
color shift green in the top. So there's just
That reminds me
fun
of
stuff.
something of Little Dave's I bought for striper fishing.
Yeah.
The shape of it and
yeah.
everything.
So I have some of Little Dave's stuff here.
Little Dave is a friend of ours who we went striper fishing with and also made an episode with. You should give it a listen.
He has a different mold, but it's real similar.
Yeah, those are the ones that I used for
Yeah.
striper.
So he has a little more of a boot tail, whereas this has a paddle tail.
Oh, I see
You
that.
see the difference
so
there?
Yeah,
So-
the paddle tail's a lot flimsier.
Yeah.
Probably more action.
So yeah, this tail kicks a lot more. This
The boot
tail
tail.
is more of a body roll inducer.
Oh,
So it just has a different
interesting.
action.
Okay.
Yeah.
I never even thought about the body roll.
Body roll's big, especially
Yeah.
I think striper really like body roll.
Yeah. Okay.
So
Nice. So it gets
Yeah.
the whole lure moving, not just the
yeah.
tail.
Yep. And that's good for slow returns. This is a core shot of this mold that is just, it has a different color running through the center than.
So core shot meaning how do you even do that?
So there's little metal
Is that-
rods.
I'm looking at it.
Yeah.
There's metal rods. Okay, because it's hard to like imagine how you would
Yeah.
layer that.
And that's one of those things you show people that don't know injection, and they're just like, how? That should be impossible.
Yeah, that's pretty cool. I don't know how you could do that.
But basically, it has these little steel rods that fit into the mold, right?
Got it.
So you pour it while
Yep.
it's still warm, and these have to be really well lubed. You pull
Yeah.
the baits off and set them back in.
Okay.
And then you shoot a super hot middle color that fills.
Oh, okay.
So with this particular one, you can even cut it off.
Oop, that's my alarm. That's embarrassing. Come on, there we go.
With these, you can even cut off the tail and it'll fill the fins too. And then you just have the grub color separate.
Oh, cool.
So there's lots of stuff.
That's a cool thing to be able to do.
Yeah.
Nice.
With most of this stuff, you're kind of just
This
limited
is
by your
like
creativity.
considered a craw, right? Or
It's a
something.
creature.
Yeah. It has real interesting fins. Is that part of the mold? Or
Yeah.
The fins all had big ridges on the outer edge. Okay.
Yep. So it makes it kick.
Yeah.
So you can just do a steady retrieve and it still kicks.
Nice. Nice.
This is one of my favorite light cover punching rigs, just because it's got good action. It's fairly compact, but yeah.
Sweet. And then you got all
just
your
playing with stuff.
how often do you go through these glass measuring cups? They last forever? Kyle had a big pile of Pyrex measuring cups and different levels of cleanliness and use.
I have seen a lot of people who have blown them up. I haven't yet.
Yeah.
I haven't yet.
And so that's your scrap material there
Yeah.
that you'll melt back down into
Yep.
other stuff.
Yep.
Yeah, it's just kind of coating the.
Well, and I mean,
Is that
so-
ooze in there? Is that solid or is it?
It's solid now, yeah.
Because it's been
Yeah.
cooled down.
but I keep a lot of
Yeah.
past stuff because you can
Yeah.
blend them all up and
Save a little
do
bit of
stick
material
baits and give them to people.
when you're
and-
real desperate.
yeah,
Does
why
it
not?
change the softness of the material?
Not really. So it depends on which kind of.
By this point, the rain was really coming down, and you could hear it dripping outside.
Which kind of plastic you remelt. It
Yeah.
pretty much maintains its hardness, more or less. The color might change with multiple reheats,
Okay,
but
that's interesting.
Yeah.
The color would change. I guess it just kind of gets worn down.
a little bit.
And then here's all your glitter, and
Yeah.
you got
Glitter, a little bit of
once
diamond.
again about 24 or so. Of these.
Yeah, there's some people that go really crazy and have just tons of variation, but I find I'm a pretty basic bait maker. So I can do most of the stuff that I want to do with that.
Is this your lubrication for the? No, that's not. That's worm oil.
So
what do you
it's
use
kind
to
of a
lubricate
softener
that
a little
rod?
bit. So I used to use worm oil, and that is the wrong thing to use.
Okay.
It just gums stuff up. Dude,
Yeah.
the best thing I found for lubricating the rods in your injectors,
Pam. All right.
not a paid
Sweet.
sponsorship. It just works really well.
Yep.
And then the other
Hey,
thing
at least
is,
not using can't believe it's on butter. Or
yeah,
something like
exactly.
that.
That'd be real awkward.
Yeah.
The other thing is cleaning this stuff can be a pain, but dude, rubbing alcohol just immediately gets it gone.
Really?
Yeah, it just
Huh.
pulls it.
Well, that stuff's pretty tough.
Clears-
It's 91%.
Yeah, that's the reason.
That's good. So, and you use the Lure Works official glitter. You don't go to Joanne Fabrics and buy
I don't
some
know.
crap
I mean,
loop
I've seen people
lure.
do it.
Uh-huh.
The difference is that stuff is made to be high temp resistant,
Okay.
so it's not gonna melt the color out.
Yeah.
You know?
Yeah. Cool, man.
Yeah.
And I see all of your formulas there on the wall. Do you just
So-
get those online, or?
I'll be on. I did,
Uh-huh.
and honestly, I haven't used them in over a year.
Covering the whole back wall of his main work area is all these sheets of different recipes. Oh, really?
When I first started, I typed all of these out so I had a starting point.
Yeah,
So I could
yeah.
get the idea of how colors went together.
But now you're just so much of a pro and you're so experienced.
No, I just make it up as I go. Now I say
Yeah.
I kind of want it to look like this, and so I just kind of mix colors and ratios until it just works. I
Yeah,
don't
this
know.
whole setup looks pretty achievable for anyone. I mean, you've got a pre-made countertop from Lowe's.
that was free from my workplace. They were
Oh,
trying to
there
get
you
rid of
go.
it.
Then you have a hood.
Habitat for Humanity.
Sweet. You just piped it right out into the attic, or?
It's out to a duct.
Oh, okay,
Yeah.
okay. And then
And I did put a booster fan in there.
you have your designated no lunches microwave.
Yeah,
'cause you
don't put food in that. And that was a $70 Walmart special.
Yeah.
Like, it's nothing special.
And then you got your pressure
Yeah, the vacuum
pressure-
chamber.
vacuum chamber. That's it.
That one, I mean, you're probably going to spend a little if you want one of those. They're not crazy.
Yeah.
It's under $200 on Amazon.
Sure.
You know?
Sure.
But, and I think there's certain types of plastic are a little more immune to that. But basically what happens is as moisture gets pulled into it, and we live in a very wet state,
yeah.
it'll bubble on you.
Yeah.
And you'll get very visible bubbles that'll mess with your buoyancy, all that stuff. So the vacuum chamber pulls that out.
Well, what if you left the bubbles in on purpose?
I mean, you
not
could do that.
predictable enough, but
You could do it.
then you have your entertainment station here.
That's
You gotta have
actually
the
just
TV
this
in.
week.
Okay.
That's
sweet.
just this week.
You added a TV this week?
Yeah, I can,
Cool.
sit here and pour baits and
Yeah, have some fishing going on and
Yeah.
inspire you.
Major
And
league
then
fishing.
you've collected molds over the years and all your
Yeah.
colors and extra
Yeah.
plastics and
This
there
is
you
the
go.
most recent mold I got. Just recently. And I've been waiting for this one for a while. That's the
Oh,
craw.
sweet.
And
That's a
that
nice
is-
craw.
That is that.
Oh, perfect. That's cool. I like how meaty those claws are.
Yeah.
Because a lot of times, if you go buy a craw at the store, it's just the little tiny
Yeah.
flimsy ribbons on the end of
Yeah.
it. But that's got a good amount of material.
and it has that ridge on the edge, again, that induces action. These things are never static.
yeah.
Yeah.
Any kind of water movement we're
Yeah.
going. Wow.
They do have a little bit of a weak attachment point. Like, that can be a fail point for them. They pull off, but
Well, and you
I'll
run a
take the
softer
action.
plastic.
these are actually these are a craw tube plastic. So
Okay.
this is a harder plastic
Yeah.
than anything I've used before for this mold.
Yeah.
For that reason.
Is the tube plastic usually more expensive than a softer one?
It just has more resin in it,
Okay.
so it just
Yeah.
hardens more.
Because normally those tubes, they're like rock solid.
Yeah. Yep. The only one that I have, and I haven't used that one, I have a little bit of saltwater blend plastic that I'm waiting to make some glow-in-the-dark swim baits for jetty fishing and stuff.
Oh, yeah.
But I haven't actually done that yet, so.
During the recording, I kind of missed that comment. So come on, Kyle. I'm waiting for that invite. Let's go catch some lingcod on the jetty.
Cool, man. Well, thanks for showing me the workshop.
Yeah.
I love it. It's fun stuff. Did you do any custom pours for today, I'm sure?
I did a few, yeah. So.
After the shed tour, it was time to head out to the pond. And man, it was a stormy night. Anyone who lives here in the valley knows that this Christmas 2024, we had a pretty crazy storm in the middle of the night that took out trees. There was branches all over the road. And at some points, it was pouring so hard that I couldn't even see the lines. But we made it out there in Kyle's Honda Element with the trailer loaded up with 2 kayaks in tow. We pulled into this family ranch, pulled past all of these outbuildings and equipment laying around, and made it to the pond. At this point, it was still pitch dark, but the sun was gonna rise soon and gray light was almost on the way. All that I knew was that I was standing on the edge of a muddy field, and I had no idea where I was or what I was in for. Not to mention it was windy and the rain was pouring really hard, so please excuse the audio quality. But we wanted to have a pre-conversation about what we were going to get into that day, some tips about winter bass fishing, and also some predictions about how the day might go.
That work?
Yeah, sweet. Well, Kyle, it is.
Zero dark 30.
Yep, I woke up at 4:30 in the morning, and I don't know if you stuck with your 5:15 plan or if you were too giddy.
I was up by 3.
Oh man, okay,
Yeah,
I thought
I
I,
couldn't
had you
sleep.
beat. I can't compete with that. And then we loaded up after a nice tour of your bait pouring room.
Yeah, thanks for humoring me on that one.
Oh, I'm not humoring you at all. You're giving me the grand tour. Appreciate it. And it is December 26th.
It is day after Christmas.
Man,
Tradition.
tradition for you. So how many years in a row have you done this?
This is my 3rd year.
Okay.
I've never taken someone with me before, though. So
Is that because no one wanted to go, or because you just were stingy on that invite?
listen, why we gotta split hairs? Little column A, little column B.
Hey, well, I appreciate the invite and the opportunity to maybe catch my first winter bass.
Yeah. Oh, I feel pretty good about that. I mean, the weather's not really in our favor. I mean, it's okay. It's
Nope.
not bad for catching fish, it's bad for fishing.
The wind's blowing pretty good.
Wind is blowing pretty good. That's going to be our biggest battle. I really don't think we're going to see too much rain. We might have a few sprinkles, but this wind is going to be,
Yeah.
for the next couple hours, is going to be a little bit rough.
I'm starting to see the water now, and this
Yeah.
pond is bigger than I thought. We're
Oh.
out on a private pond that no one in the world knows about,
Yeah.
except for you. and the,
I'm
and the
not
owner.
saying you'd get shot if you came back by yourself, but I'm saying don't rule it out.
Yep. Man, I can already tell it's going to be beautiful once that sun comes up, though.
Oh yeah, this is one of my favorite places on earth.
Surrounded by the hills all around. Is there any kind of launch here, or are we just going into off a bank or something?
Pretty much off the bank. It's a little bit protected. You can see it's just marsh. There's a little dock right there that we can use.
Okay.
I'll probably use that. It's a little more rutted there, but
Sure.
it's a pretty decent launch for small rigs.
And we've talked about your kayaks before, but I'm honored to get to ride
Yeah.
your secondary today.
Yeah, and so this is a conversation we had on the way in here. Just the type of fishing we're going to be doing today,
Yeah.
and how it's maybe a little counterintuitive to what most people would think it's going to be.
Yeah.
We are running, at least the plan at this point, is that we are running mostly, if you look at my selection of baits,
Yep. We've got
I've got
some big swim baits on this side.
2 6-inch swim baits, a 5-inch swim bait, a spinner bait. What else do I have over there? I forget what that
Can't
one is.
see on this side. I'm saying, you know, the thing
Oh, that one is the craw jig.
the thing that surprised me the most, for one, is the jig, and for two, is the spinner bait. I never would have thought we'd be touching those today.
So in cold water, man, there's nothing quite like a slow rolled spinner bait
Yeah.
and a jerk bait with long
Man.
pauses. I was going to ask you that before we left, if you have jerk baits.
Define a jerk bait.
Long, small bill. You do a twitch, and it kind of darts, and then you just let it.
Oh yeah, I do. Yep.
Okay.
I do.
Those jerk baits are notoriously good, especially with a little bit of wind.
Surprising.
Is terrible because they're horrible to cast in the wind,
Oh yeah.
but they work really well when there's a distortion on the water. Spinner baits are the same way. They're
Yeah,
going to work better with a little distortion.
The one that I have, I actually bought from Jay Yellis at a little swap meet thing.
Yeah, it probably works then.
Yep. Well, you'd think, right? Because he kind of knows how to catch bass. But
Well, let's put it this way: the bait works. I don't know if we can make it work.
well, that part lands on me, so we'll see how we do.
Yeah.
But yeah, I thought we'd be slow cranking like Carolina rigs and drop shots and stuff like that. I didn't realize we'd be throwing these, any kind of spinner at all
Yeah.
in December.
Yeah. Listen, I'm not saying this is like anything that I'm super authoritative on or anything like that, but I will say I think I fish more for bass in December than most of the people in this state.
Yeah, I think I would agree.
At least at this point.
I mean, I think I fish for bass more in December, and I'm here now. This is my first time fishing for bass in December. Most people just don't even care to pick up the rod, you know?
And I honestly, I think this time of year is kind of the most rewarding bass fishing that there is. Especially if you're throwing swim baits. Like, yeah, you're not going to get a lot of hits.
Sure.
But the hits that you do get
Yeah.
are memories. I
Yeah.
mean,
You work hard for them, and the fish can be bigger.
the fish are bigger.
Yeah.
I remember the first time that we interviewed, you asked me like early spring or late fall.
Yeah.
And I told you early spring.
Sure.
But that's a continuation of the winter bite.
Yeah, that's
you
like
know?
February. That's
Yeah. This is early winter for me. February is like money.
yeah. Oh
It's just
man,
money.
really. See, yeah, when I think of February, I just think of bitter, cold, stormy days.
Yeah.
It's one of the two. It's either going to be pouring rain or it's going to be about 20 degrees.
I've launched my kayak off an icy bank before.
Nice.
It's good time.
See, now you sound like a duck hunter.
No.
Because that's the season for ducks, especially you hit January,
Yeah.
If there's an ice storm, you hit the water. But are you out for bass in the ice at all?
Absolutely.
Oh man, wow.
I don't really do much else. So, I'm a one-trick pony.
Man, so you've put in the time, battle hardened to try to figure out these fish. What are they doing right now?
I mean, so they're mostly they're sitting low in the water column where the water's more stable.
Okay.
They're going to be hunkered down. They're going to be conserving energy. They don't have a ton of it to burn, but they still eat.
Okay.
And the thing that, and I'm not saying this is gospel, I'm not saying I'm even right, but what I've figured out for myself is if I slow roll and let big 6-inch swim baits drop off of things, the fish that decide today is their day to eat this week, they're going to say, okay, I get a lot of caloric return on that bite versus a bunch of little bites.
Got it.
You know,
so they're trying to move as little as possible,
Yep.
eat big.
Yep.
And are they for lack of a better term, bedded down in the feeding areas?
So they're bedded down outside of the feeding areas. That's one of the weird things. People are always like, oh, you have to go in the trenches, you have to go mainline, you know, to find these guys. And I'm sure they're there, and I'm sure you can get them to bite there. But what I've found is the drop off edges that are right near those troughs is where the ones that want to eat hang out.
Sure, because they're waiting for something to come down.
Yeah.
And
they still have to go where the bait fish are.
And are they eating, what are they eating this time of year? Bait fish?
That's the
Crawdads?
best luck I've had is bait fish.
Okay.
I can't say that again. I ain't saying that's gospel. I don't know enough to say that, but
Yeah.
that's what I've had the best luck with.
And you're fishing in ponds mostly in the winter. Have you done much river fishing in the winter?
No.
I mean, the river's so blown out.
Yeah.
What do those bass even do? How do they
Man,
live?
they hunker down behind cover and just survive.
Do they even feed? Do they?
I mean, everything has to eat. but
Sure.
Not regularly enough
Yeah.
to make river fishing worth it for me.
do you know if they go up into sloughs and hang out in the calm water, or if they'd rather, like, I don't know, hide behind a log or something?
I mean, every fish in a raging river that's blown out is going to be looking for some kind of current break.
Yeah.
Right.
Yeah.
But I think the majority of them don't go up into the super shallows.
Okay.
At least not to my knowledge. And I'm not a great river fisherman. Like, I don't know.
Yeah. Yeah.
I'm far better on ponds.
Yep.
But I mean, they go up there when they start looking for spawning places, you know, things like that.
And that's pretty early sometimes.
It can be.
Yeah.
But no, I think most of them are just hunkered down in cover, close to structure because they can't see anything, and just holding on until things settle down.
Yeah, if you want to add a factor to make this a challenge, man, add a muddy river current to it. I mean, this is already
Dodging logs.
we're in some gusts of wind on the way out here. There was a bunch of tree branches in the road.
I wasn't going to tell you it's supposed to gust like 35, 40.
Oh, sweet. I hope I stay afloat.
You will.
Blow me out of the yak. But then on the way to your place, there was lineman crews out and everything.
Nice.
We lost power at our place for about an hour.
No kidding.
And so, you know, that all those elements that come with December being out in the elements, you know.
Yeah.
Love it though.
Yep.
Looks like we're starting to see some gray light coming up over the horizon, so I think we're gonna hit the water pretty quick. All right, well, we'll touch back in after the experience, and on the drive home we'll kind of render down our experience, but I'm looking forward to it.
It'll be good.
Thanks again for the invite.
I'm sorry about that audio quality, but you know what? It gives you a good taste of what you can expect if you want to attempt to catch a bass in the middle of winter. The weather is unpredictable, the water's cold, the air's cold, but you know what? Sometimes we just need those kind of experiences in our lives. In order not to bury the lead, I'll say right now, we did get a fish in the boat, and I'm happy to announce that I caught my first December bass, a decent sized largemouth, no PB, but a good representation of what a healthy, mature largemouth looks like. Listen to our follow-up conversation we had on the way home as we rendered down the experience and also gave some final wintertime bass fishing tips for you to try it on your own. And one more disclaimer, this was recorded in a moving vehicle, so there's a bit of background noise, but I hope you can get something good out of it.
Well, we did it.
Yeah, we did.
We survived the December 26th.
Survived.
More than survived. I mean, I don't know. You might feel like you survived, but
I mean, I'm not proud of this trip, but it was still a good trip. It was. I think there's something special about being in the I'll say the severity of nature.
Yeah.
Because I think we had a little bit of severe weather. There was some serious rain and some
There
serious
was.
wind.
Yep. There was when we were loading up before daylight, and I was standing on the dock, one of those gust of winds hit me, and I had to take a step back.
Yeah, and it, for the next hour or two after that, it got nothing but harder.
Yep, it just kept blowing. I ended up sticking my kayak back into a little hidden area from the wind, and just trying to cast as much as I could in all these different spots, and I mean, it did pay off with the fish.
Yep.
So, I mean, I know that you were really hoping that we'd be taken home, or not really taken home, but, you know, coming home with the story of some sort of giant largemouth or something like that. But, you know, it was a good average sized largemouth. It wasn't a small fish, you know.
Yeah, and you know, I think we talked about this a little bit too, is if this was just a random, hey, let's go fishing, and we saw the weather that had been the night before, we probably would have rescheduled just because it shocked the pond. Like it was not in its normal state. But you know, when it's something that we've had planned out for months, you don't really have the option of doing that, and it's just all right, let's go see what we can make happen.
And it's your tradition, you know, like if you didn't do it on today, it wouldn't have been the same tradition.
That's
it would
true.
have been a different trip. But
December 26th.
yeah, so I feel accomplished for catching one at all, because I've never caught a bass in the winter. I've never caught a bass in December.
Yep.
I've never caught a bass when it is below, the water temperature was 45 degrees for the whole day. And I mean, those are all just kind of factors that,
within like half a degree.
yeah, I look at that personally and I think, man, I don't know how we would ever catch a bass in that weather, let alone a largemouth. And then here we are. We did it. I mean, you got a hit, right?
Yeah, I got one or two hits.
Yeah. I got a
but they were short strikes
couple
and
gentle
just kind of
taps, yeah. And then the one fish landed, which was kind of cool because I was throwing that chatterbait jig head kind of thing with a trailer on it, and then a white craw, which I think was something that you poured, right?
Yes.
Yeah, and which is it's always fun catching stuff on something that you poured.
Yeah, it's always better.
Yeah, and then it reeling that fish in, it must be because it was so cold or what, but he didn't fight at all. Like at one point I was reeling him in and I actually stopped reeling because I thought, is this still on there, or am I reeling in a clump of weeds?
I was gonna say, was he covered in weeds through
No.
that section? Really?
I thought, you know, because that was my other thought, is I thought, okay, well, I'll pull him up and he'll be full of weeds, but no, just pulled him right out of the river, or out of the water. And there he was. It hooked him in the roof of the mouth.
Yeah.
Right there, one single hook, and so it was just a, you know, perfect hook set and everything. There we go. Got a bass in December, so I can check that off my bucket list.
Yep. Next thing on the list is catch a bass in the winter when the water is warmer than the air on a 6-inch swim bait. That's your next checklist.
Yeah, when we get a bit of frost on the ground.
Oh, yeah.
And yeah, I threw that swim bait a lot. Didn't get any hits this time.
No,
but
it just wasn't the right day for it.
yeah. The other thing though is it wasn't until the end of the day that we added weight to it.
Yeah.
So I was throwing it and then I'd let it sink for as long as I could, but it still wasn't really going that deep until we added that nail weight.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And part of that too is the one I had rigged up on there had a nail weight in it.
Yeah.
Because I had fished that one before, and yeah, especially when it's cold water, you're not in shallow, you're not going over obstructions, you really need that thing to have a little extra weight to get it down where the fish are.
Yep. All the action that I saw today was on the bottom.
Yeah.
And one, you know, as usual, next to a drop off or a point kind of a thing, and there they are.
Yeah,
so,
drop-offs and points are always pretty good places to start if you don't know what's happening.
But that's like year-round, no matter what, basic bass knowledge, right?
I mean, I don't think you're ever going to go really wrong, you know, searching out a point and working your way out from there. I mean, with largemouth bass especially, there's a certain part of the year where I'm going to try dirt shallow first, you know?
Sure.
But...
Or even like top water.
Yeah. And even if you're running top water, run it by a point.
Yeah,
you know, like,
honestly. Yep.
They do they do hold to those more often than not.
Yeah. So, is there only largemouth in that pond?
No.
There's smallmouth too?
There's no smallmouth, but
Okay,
there's some other. I think there's perch in there. I think. I'm not sure about that one. I know there's bluegill in there, and I'm pretty sure there's crappie in there. And from what I hear, those bluegill that are in there are borderline state record size dinner plate.
Yeah, it'd be real fun to catch one of those.
Yeah.
Especially like, some super lightweight gear and go out there with a maggot or something.
Honestly, with a bluegill that big, you probably want to use your bass gear. Those things are going to fight.
They do fight like nuts, pound for pound. Like, you can't beat fighting a bluegill, that's for sure. So yeah, but no smallmouth.
No.
I wonder if wintertime smallmouth fishing is much different than wintertime largemouth fishing.
I'm not 100% sure. I know they're a little more active in colder water. I don't fish many waters that have smallmouth that don't get blown out by winter rainfall.
Yeah, because I was going to say the only places I can really think to catch smallmouth are like the rivers, and those get really blown out. And I know Hag Lake, some of the lakes, they have them, but I don't know how that would fish in the winter. That would be pretty tough.
I think you'd have to be fairly selective because, they get blown out too. They recover better.
Yeah.
But yeah, you're still going to be fighting chocolate milk water and, you know, 20. And if they're reservoirs too, there's a couple of them that they drop the levels of to the point you can barely get a watercraft into them.
Yeah, that's true. I think they do that to protect the dams maybe from flooding or...
It's a flooding precaution, but...
Yeah. So is what we did today, other than, I know that you were expecting more fish, but as far as our approach to it, was that pretty standard as far as the type of fishing we were doing for wintertime bass fishing?
Sort of. I kind of pushed harder for the moving baits and the big baits that I might have if I was learning a new body of water, just because I know what's in this place.
Sure.
So if I'm fishing more of an open canvas, maybe more of a highly pressured place, because nobody fishes this place we're at today.
Yeah. Private pond.
I would probably, find those transition points to drop offs, find the places that I think are winter feeding spot, and then look for something that looks like fish or structure or something like that they're probably going to be holding to. And I would probably fish a lot slower, some shaky head drop shot, something like that.
Okay.
I would still throw something like a spinnerbait and just see if I get movement or action, more to inform where they're at, and then just see what they want.
Well, because that was a couple of the bites I got today were on a spinnerbait that I was actually jigging off the bottom because it had a pretty heavy head on it. Yeah. And, when I was pulling that thing in, it was noisy.
Yeah.
It was real noisy, which is what you want.
No, spinnerbaits, man, you got to pay attention to the blade shape and the blade color. And obviously skirt color and all that, but blade shape is huge. For cold water, you want to steer away from the willow blades and get some of those fatter, chunkier blades. It's going to allow you to retrieve them slower and still have that movement. It's going to give off more throb in the water. Okay. That sort of thing. And you just move it as slow as you can with it still acting right. Yeah. I'll say spinnerbaits are under-realized in their effectiveness for cold water fishing. In my opinion, I love them.
Well, because I did some just very shallow, quick searching, this week before we came out, just to see how do you even start to approach a bass in the wintertime. And said I didn't see the word spinnerbait once.
Really?
And, I did see people mention chatterbaits, but everything that mentioned anything like a more active lure like that was to work it as slow as humanly possible. Yeah. And I don't know if I should have been. I wasn't really doing that today. On both the bites that I got, I was still working it at a decent speed, although I was jigging it rather than doing a regular retrieve.
Yeah, and you looked like you were doing a little bit of a pickup, drop, and drag kind of thing, which is not a bad way to go.
Trying to... The drag was really just to pop it through the weeds again, because it was pretty weedy. It wasn't bad, it was totally fishable, but it did have, a good good amount of what's the word I'm looking for? Herbs.
Well, in the one fork, the one that was a little nastier for you, I think that was like a hydrilla. The other
Yep.
one was a lot of dead grass, but it also had juvenile
Lily pads.
lily pads. That's
Yeah, and those things were really fishable. I think maybe because they're slimy, it was really easy for me to pull something right through them.
Yeah.
And then maybe every few casts I'd have to pull a stick off, but for the most part, I was able to stick them right in there. And that's where I caught that bass, was in the baby lily pad stuff on a drop-off hole closer to the bank, you know. And so it was kind of funny too so like I said, he didn't really even fight on the way in, but then after I released him, he just kind of sat there for a little bit before he decided to slowly swim off.
Yeah, I think those fish were in a bit of a shell shock kind of place, because the barometers was doing a dance the last day, and even when we were out there, it was climbing pretty fast. So I mean,
yeah. Well, we
they
already
were
talked about
adjusting.
the windstorm,
Yeah.
and then today it was going from windy to still to raining to sunny and windy to sunny and raining, like just every combo you could imagine.
Yeah, we were getting, and this is a small pond, remember, so there's no like giant white caps from the wind or anything like that.
Yeah.
I still had one or two of the wind waves break over the top of my kayak. So
Yeah. I mean, I'm pretty wet. My rain gear failed on the legs. Upper body, I'm good, but you know. And I was pretty warm for the most part until we got out and started loading up to end the day. Then for some reason, I don't know why, I started shivering so bad.
well, because you have wet legs.
Yeah,
You know?
yep, started walking around. So if you could describe like textbook perfect winter bass feeding area, how would you describe it?
Man, I mean, I don't think there's something that's just like, oh, this is universal for everything, you know, like big reservoirs are going to act different than ponds are, you know?
Sure.
But what I would say is you're generally going to be looking for deeper water, right? You're not going to be looking up in the 1.5 foot kind of thing. They're generally just So there's this thing called the thermocline, right?
Yeah.
And I think I've talked to you about the thermocline before.
Yeah.
And it twice a year it switches over where all the water does a somersault, basically.
temperature related.
It is, but it also is a barrier for oxygen to a degree.
Okay.
So a lot of times when you get below a certain depth, there's going to be a lack of oxygen because it's just not replenishing, and you're not going to find much below that.
Okay.
So yes and no. I mean, you're looking, especially if it's like a deep reservoir, you're looking at smallmouth. Yeah, you could be looking 60-something feet down. Like,
Wow.
they'll be down there.
Wow.
But there are limits.
And you got to wonder if those fish are even going to eat when they're down that deep.
I mean, they do.
Yeah.
You look at like some of the Great Lakes, some of these guys that are just smallmouth specialists on the Great Lakes, and they'll have certain spots that they know where they're at, they know what they want, and they'll be dropping down 60 feet and pulling out just footballs.
Whoa. Man.
That would terrify me. I have no idea how to do that. That's not my skill set, but it is amazing.
Yeah, that's cool. So, but more locally here in the Pacific Northwest, where most of us aren't fishing water that deep.
Yeah.
You're looking for that thermocline. How do you even know?
No, so honestly, I'd look for the channel, the center channel in whatever body of water you're in. Most likely you're going to be in an arm of something or something like that.
Okay.
So that deeper water is more stable in temperature. They're going to be looking for that stability. And sometimes they will eat down there. Yeah. And this is just personal experience. I don't know that this is, again, necessarily perfectly true, but I've found that they still come up to flats to feed if they really want to eat. But what you're looking for is that area that has that flat. It's still probably like today, the flat we were working was a lot of times 11 foot to 16 foot, something in there.
Yeah.
You know?
Yeah.
But we were looking for that flat space right next to a hump with a drop off to 25 feet.
Yep.
That's what I was looking for. That's why you saw me hang out. That's why that one place where you camped out,
Yeah.
I pointed that out to you at the beginning. I'm like, that's a good spot. There's a hump right here. It drops down 25 feet, and then there's a flat.
Yeah.
And the reason I laughed at that's where you caught your fish today is because that is within 10 feet of where I caught a 7-pound 2-ounce early this year.
Yeah,
So
man.
like that spot holds fish.
Yep. And that was also a winter fish as well.
Yeah,
right.
that was a February fish.
Yeah, man. So even more into the winter.
Yeah.
Yeah, that's cool. That's cool. Yeah, I think that helps me kind of visualize what we're looking for, because they are still going to feed wherever the food is, right? Is where they're going to kind of go. And they're only going to eat, what, once a week?
Oh, I don't know what they eat far less.
Yeah.
I mean, they're slowed down. They want to have a valuable meal when they can get it, but they want to expend as little energy as possible.
Yeah.
They want to fatten up.
Yeah. And then is there a big difference in color choice? I was sticking with lighter colors today. I don't know why but maybe that was just me, not really found it on much. I saw you were throwing a black chatterbait and trailer at one point.
I was, yeah. I moved back into the kind of the source of that pond, and the water was a little muddier. There was a big difference in water clarity from the outlet to the hillside where it was kind of draining in.
Yeah.
And when I was working in some of those areas, I put in black and blue because it was a lot more muddy. And also, black and blue just has a really good silhouette capability. So I just wanted to make sure it was super visible.
Yeah. For like something down below it looking up, right?
Down below looking up, yeah. It makes it a lot more easy to see for them.
Okay. Well, and I had the paddle kayak and you had the electric motor kayak.
Yeah.
And so it was easier for you to kind of go around. I mostly stayed in the one arm for as long as I could, because I didn't want to have to fight that wind out, in the other arms of the pond.
Yep, and I mean, that kind of shows you too why, yes, it's overkill, yes, it's a boat now, but you can see why I want a motor on that thing.
Man, yeah. A motor and a heavier anchor.
Yeah, yeah, I'm gonna have to work on that anchor.
The anchor that, I mean, beggars can't be choosers. I'm thankful I got to use it, but it was a water bottle filled with concrete with an eye bolt in it.
And it works for light breezes.
Yeah,
perfectly
it did
fine.
work. There was times when I was able to really lock it in, and then we get a strong gust, and all of a sudden I'm on the other side of the pond.
To be fair, though, I was using a cannonball, and I had those times too.
Yeah, and your cannonball looked like it was sticking into the mud.
It really does a good job at that, yeah.
Yeah, and it was still pulling you. I mean, at some point, you just can't fight the wind. The wind is blowing hard.
The wind will win, eventually.
Also, the winter bass fishing is kind of a test of toughness, because, I mean, that wind, not only is it cold and uncomfortable, but it can just be so frustrating trying to cast and deal with your line and deal with the lures and tying knots and everything. It just really wears you down.
Yeah, especially when your fingers start going numb and you can't really grip anything anymore. And
you're trying to cast, you get a backlash. I did pretty good. So, well, first of all, big fail. I left my rods in the back of my pickup. So I had to...
Fortunately, I brought 9,
Yep.
so...
Yep, so you had just enough for me to borrow a couple. And then, so I had to borrow yours, but I only got 2 backlashes on a stranger's rod. Which isn't horrible.
No, that's not bad at all.
Yeah.
Part of what helps with that is the bigger baits with that long rod and that magnetic braking on it.
Yeah.
That helps. The
Which
heavy.
You run your brake a bit lighter than I do. I think it's probably because you're more experienced. You like to really whip them out there, but.
I do on the heavier lures because it's less likely to.
Man, well, thanks again for the opportunity for the trip. It was fun, and it was we got to embrace the suck, and we got to stick it out.
Embrace the mild frustration. That wasn't too bad. I tell you,
you keep going back and forth on that.
I mean, it was a nice day. The further you get from it, the better it was. But I mean, so I've had to cross Silcoots in 25-mile-an-hour winds.
Oh man, yeah.
And let's put it this way. Every single wave was launching over my kayak into my face, and then when I went over it,
you did that
on this yak, and then the motor was popping out of the water as I went over it. I was drenched.
Yeah, that's brutal. Yeah, we didn't have those kind of conditions today.
No, thank goodness.
We got the gambit, the mix of it all.
Yeah.
Awesome. Well, thanks for taking me.
Absolutely. Anytime.
I'm gonna move my truck now.
All right.
That way you can park.